Alright, let's get this drive shaft in this thing. So I'm going to show you a couple things on this. So this is a chromoly shaft. It's a 3.5-inch OD. I don't know what the wall thickness is. But basically I told them, somewhere around 1500 horsepower drive shaft kind of thing. A lot of people would be like, why not aluminum or carbon fiber? I don't know if an aluminum shaft is tough enough for that kind of power level, and carbon fiber is just insanely expensive. Plus the carbon stuff I think has a pretty limited lifespan in a vehicle that sees a lot of street time. I don't know that for sure. I've heard that. Chromoly was just the safe option. Obviously it is heavy in comparison, but I don't think it's worth the, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't feel like it's worth the chance of having a drive shaft failure, right? So a couple things on this. This was custom made for me. If you watch the previous videos on how I measured it and the links I got and that kind of thing, I kind of breezed through them in the video, I know, but they're in there nonetheless. So this thing is, you see that divot there, that mark there, and then the two marks here. I'll set this down so I can use my other hand to point at them, but see the divot there and the divot there above between the A and the N. So those are all supposed to be in line when I put this thing in there. So obviously this is balanced as an assembly with the yoke on the end of the shaft. And then he just basically prick punched the shaft and the yoke in two spots just to show me, make sure that I index them correctly as it was balanced. So if you're getting a shaft made and it comes without the yoke on it or with the removable cap deal like what I have, make sure you put that stuff together correctly and that the shaft that you're having do the balancing marks them for you. So I'm gonna climb under the car and get this thing in there. Alright, a couple things. I got the drive shafts in, trans coolers hooked up. So I've got to put like 4 quarts of fluid in this thing before we fire it in the trans. I still have to figure the neutral safety switch stuff out, but I'm going to put trans fluid in it now so that stuff's done out of the way. These dipsticks are kind of cool. They're locking, right? So you got to release this collar, push down on the collar like so. Dipstick comes out. Pretty simple. You have to, this is a transdat piece. They have this little end of this funnel here. You have to get that to really be able to use it. It just slides in there. But it doesn't, it'd be cool if they made one that locked in there, which this one does not do, obviously, which would have been nice, but that's okay. So I've got, for trans fluid on this thing, so Rossler recommends type F. So I've looked around a bit and I didn't want to put just a normal type F in it, so I picked up some ATI. They're super F. They have this in a 0, 20, and a 30 weight. This is a 20 weight. I figure we can change the fluid mixture a little bit if we need to adjust stall speed. I really don't typically like doing that, just because, I mean, it works in a pinch, I guess, but it's just better to have the right converter. In my opinion. Wow, the top of this thing is super. Okay, here we go. So let's see how much of a mess this makes, because that little funnel adapter isn't sealed in there real well. So I'm gonna get these 4 quarts in here, and then oh hey, this funnel on this, obviously, like I forgot, but this funnel, you turn it to shut it off and on. We actually use this for kart racing because I can measure the, there we go, the fluid level, the oil level we're putting in the kart engines, because they only run a few, like between 12 and like I think between 12 and 18 ounces depending on what engine we're doing. Anyway, I'm gonna get these 4 quarts of fluid in this thing and start working on the neutral safety stuff and see if we can get it fired up. All right, now I got these guys printed. Pretty simple little deal there. But I got a piece of trans line, see how they fit. Check that out. So there, you get them in there all the way. Well, these aren't designed to hold them directionally. They're just literally designed to support the weight. So, yeah, looks like they'll do that pretty good. I'm gonna climb under this thing and put some nut certs in there and bolt these up. One thing I did do that was goofy is I went to the hardware store and I just got some normal Allens. I apparently should have got some button heads because the Allen sticks down below the bracket a little bit, but you know, whatever, it's not that big a deal. I don't know if you guys, a lot of guys aren't familiar with the nut cert stuff. And honestly, I didn't know about these till a couple years ago. So I thought I'd move my 3D printer. I thought I'd show you guys this thing in a second. This is a Matco one, but there's several different types. So this thing here is what the nut cert actually is. So this was a serrated one. They have these in different styles and whatever. But basically you drill a hole through whatever you're gonna insert the nut cert into, and then the tool threads into the nut cert, pulls this down, and it ripples this like much like a pop rivet, holds that in place, so then you can add, I'm able to add threads to the bottom side of the car. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna drill like holes for, I've made 3 of these mounts, hopefully that's enough. Pop 3 of these nut certs in there, and then bolt those brackets up, and then the trans lines will be up and out of the way. So yeah, I thought you guys might think that was cool. All right, check these out. Pretty did a pretty good job of tying them up there, I think. Sorry, I'm rolling on my creeper. Ride's a little bumpy. Lines are a touch long. It's hard to see because I'm blocking the light, but the lines are a touch long. I could shorten them up a little bit, but they'll work for now. Maybe I'll move them a little, take some slack out of them on the other side here, but yeah, I'm happy with those brackets. I mean, they're bright red because that's the only color ABS I had on hand, but yeah, they'll work. So I thought you guys would, I think that's kind of neat having a 3D printer and a little bit of skill on CAD, very little CAD skill. Definitely comes in handy for projects like this. I might throw these on the website and sell them if you guys are interested. I can make them in different sizes and colors and whatever, obviously. So, but yeah, move on to the next thing. All right, so I've got transcooler stuff hooked up. I figured out how to get the starter relay to work. Now, from the factory in these things, I tried to do some research, and most people buy the manual, so the 5-speed transmission harness, and then program the ECU to be a manual transmission ECU to look for that connection, and then they just run the clutch switch to the neutral safety switch on their shifter. Well, being that I'm getting rid of the stock ECU and we're literally just hooking this up to do a dyno test, and I want to use as much of this factory, like the factory ignition, the factory wiring as I can when I do put the other ECU in it, I had to figure out how to bypass the ECU altogether. So the factory ECU runs both sides of the starter relay. The ground and the power side of it. It gets a 12-volt input from the start position on the tumbler, and then it decides if it sees, you know, the neutral safety switch and whatever else it needs to see to activate that relay. That's why when you just bump the key, it runs for a few seconds. It'll crank over for a few seconds until it starts. That's all because the ECU is controlling both sides of the starter relay. So what I found is that pin 16 on the bottom connector on the ECU is the signal from the key on the start position. So I ran that wire to the starter relay through the factory fuse box, and then hooked the other side of that same relay to ground, and now the key works as normal, and it bypassed all the stuff in the security side of the ECU to run the starter. The other thing I did on the ground side of that, I ran that ground wire, instead of just grounding it right at the relay, which I did to test, I ran the ground wire to the starter, or I'm sorry, not to the starter, listen to me, to the shifter for the neutral safety switch. So I just grounded one side of that and ran the other side of the switch to the relay. I haven't tested that yet. I'm gonna do that now. I'm gonna get the car up on jack stands, get the ride height blocks out from underneath it, and see if the neutral safety switch works. And if it does, then I'm gonna get the trains up to the tent, put some fluid in it, make sure we have all the gears and the trans brake works and all that kind of stuff. So. I've been dying to see if this thing will come up on the converter. So I pulled the pump gas out of it. I put the good fuel in it. I'm gonna shut the hood and stick this thing on the trans brake and see if it'll come up on the converter. I think I got a 4500 chip in. Oh, I gotta turn the CO2 on too. I don't want to forget to do that. But yeah, so I'm gonna do that. See what happens. Alright, I'm super stoked about that. I didn't even look at the boost gauge like an idiot, so I don't know what kind of pressure it made, but that would have been set to make like 9 pounds on the brake. It actually came up faster on the brake there than it did with the other transmission in that combination, so that's super promising. One of the things I'm worried about with this 165 first gear trans, because the trans is such a long first gear ratio, was being able to build enough boost to leave out enough power to make up for the gear ratio change. So on the stock ECU in the 6R, I was only able to make like 9 pounds. So now, with the Haltech in it, I'll have a little bit better control, like a launch control strategy. Once we get, obviously still stock ECU now, but once we get there, which should allow me to make 15, 20 pounds, or basically whatever I want on the trans brake to make up for that gear ratio swap. So yeah, it's looking like the converter is going to work well. We'll see more when we get on the dyno and see what it actually flashes to under power to see if maybe it's a little too loose. But so far so good. This is a Rossler with the easy stage, so it does have a converter dump hooked to the trans brake currently. So yeah, curious to see how it does on the dyno. A couple things we have to do yet. I have no transmission catch can on it currently. I need to do that and replumb the intercooler. I haven't decided if I'm gonna redo that plumbing before we go to the dyno, or if I'm just gonna throw the old stuff back on it and go to the dyno. I haven't made up my mind. Yeah, gonna make work of getting stuff around to do those two projects maybe next weekend. But for now, that's it for this video. Hope you guys liked it. Things sure sounds cool. I'm so excited with this new trans, man. I can't wait to make a hit with it, especially now that it's running again. Super stoked. So don't forget to subscribe keep following along with this build and all the other stuff we post. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.